Morning, everyone, and welcome to Autism Mama Bear Talk. Today, I have in my husband's studio, I have a very special guest with us. It's Autism Daddy Bear, also known as Joseph Mark Tinsley, my one and only husband, autism advocate, great warrior, gentle giant, as people call him. And it's such an honor to have him with us because I really want to have the insight of Autism Daddy because we always hear from mummies, from sisters, but very rarely we hear actually insight of a daddy. So thank you for accepting my invitation.
It is my honor to be here. I'm always the fan on the sidelines watching these shows, so it's pretty cool to be on the show with my wife. Very proud of this lady.
I'm very proud of you.
You're doing great work.
Well, without further ado, I wanna ask you straight away questions. Let's go to the core because I promised our audience that there will be no filtering, no sugarcoating. We're gonna go straight as it is.
Yep.
And you never do anyway. So when we have our diagnosis, Michael, when he was around 3 years old, how did you come to terms with it? What did you feel? Because really we discussed it privately, but you never shared with people. And please say, before you go, say a few words about you, what you were doing back then, about the ministry.
Sure.
And
So I'm a second generation missionary. My parents were missionaries in the country of Cyprus for 28 years, and I grew up there, spent most of my childhood and adult life in Cyprus. And then in 2004, I went over to be a part of my dad's ministry, and then I became the pastor of the Open Door Baptist Church in Limassol in 2008, and I was the pastor there for 8 years. And then we made the difficult decision to come back, to basically move back to the U.S. so that we could get help for Michael because we were just running out of care options in Cyprus. We had great therapists, and they did great work with him, but just the resources were not available. And so we said, the clock is ticking. He's getting older. He's getting bigger. He's getting stronger. We need to do something. So we came here really just on a 3-month round trip. We had return tickets to Cyprus just to see if things would work out with the school. Everything did work out. We're very thankful that it has worked out, but it was obviously the most difficult decision of our lives, of my life for sure, to leave a ministry that I love very much and was a labor of love and have been a part of since I was 11 years old. But we're glad that we can be here in the U.S. and have the opportunity to get Michael the help he needs. So that's what we're doing. That's my background. I'm basically resigned or retired, you could say. Not fully retired from ministry, but I'm a retired missionary, church planner, pastor. One of the three, all of the three.
Just one of the greatest preachers I've ever heard.
That's sweet of you.
And the best singer in the world. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. So
you are sweet.
Back to the core. Diagnosis in 2010, early 2010.
Yep.
How did it hit you? How did you feel? What did you feel?
Well, I think mostly confusion. I think that was the biggest thing because I didn't even know what autism was.
Yeah.
My only concept of autism, and I didn't even know it was called autism, was the movie Rain Man that came out in the early 80s. Just had no idea what autism even was. And so I think when we were first kind of getting some help and we were sitting down with some experts and they were kind of explaining what could be done in early intervention and all those things. I was sitting there the whole time, still not fully appreciating what we were in for. I was still thinking, yeah, but obviously Michael is still going to talk. It's just going to be delayed, and things are going to get better.
Yep.
In some ways they have, but I just really had no concept. I had no idea what we were in for. I had no idea really what the spectrum meant and what it would entail. So I think that was it. I think it was just naivety, confusion, and just kind of sitting there thinking, okay, so this is all great, but when is Michael going to start talking? That was kind of my my reaction at the time.
And even our parents, both, because nobody knew, nobody understood what autism was.
Sure.
And it's like, okay, Michael is just a slow talker. Michael is gonna talk. Don't worry about it. Give it a time because he's confused, and the doctors reaffirmed this belief that he's just delayed with speech because he's bilingual or trilingual at some point. That was.
And we also, I remember seeing him lining up cars and objects like all the way up the stairs and around the hallway. We'd see just all these little cars and toys lined up forever through the house. So we knew things were a little different. And
spinning the wheel.
Not playing with toys in the way that you would normally play with them. And I just remember sitting the whole time thinking, when is my boy going to start talking? This bound to kick in some point. So I was just very naive, had really no knowledge whatsoever, just wasn't prepared for it at all. And so that led to a time of deep confusion and fear, anxiety, things that I've always wrongfully considered myself, to be strong, and I would not really have always the compassionate, right attitude toward others that were kind of struggling with anxiety. I didn't understand anxiety. I kind of looked down on it at the time, I'm ashamed to say. But when I started experiencing that, just, panic and just always thinking every time the phone rang, oh my goodness, what's happened to Michael? Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of those calls were something happened to Michael. Yeah. So it's just every time the phone rings, oh my goodness, what's happened now? Yeah. So it was just we were just kind of reeling there. I was reeling there for a long time, and just.
So what stages did you go through, like when we heard autism, and I explained to you from psychologist side what I knew about autism, and then we started digging deeper, and we went to early intervention program, the early birds. Then we were trying to help him with ABA therapy and different approaches. So the stages, what was the first one? Confusion, obviously.
First stage was confusion.
And disbelief.
Just floored, confused.
My son doesn't have autism yet.
And if he does, what is it? What does it mean?
Yeah.
It's going to be fine. Okay, it just means he's going to be shy. That was really what I thought. That was the first stage. And then when I think as he got older, and obviously, we went through that horrible kind of first cycle of his food ingestion issues.
Oh yes.
And just it was pretty harrowing. Times just the food. He wasn't digesting his food. It was just a really strange time. And then I think we sort of got to a stage of sadness. I think I would have gone through a period of grief and still kind of shell shock. And then it probably became, for a while there, it would have been a mix of anger and bitterness. Yeah. It would have challenged me at the very core of my beliefs. I remember thinking at the time, God, if you would just fix my son, I would be a much better pastor. I could be a much better dad. I could be a better husband. I could be a better friend, a better son, certainly a better pastor at the church. I could do more for the church members. If you would just fix Michael, then everything would be fine. Yeah.
So now that brings me to my next question. As a man of God, as a minister, as a preacher and a pastor, overseeing the whole flock of congregation, and you have to stand up at the pulpit every week, actually twice a week, with brave face, encourage other people. And here you have your wife and your mother wrestling with your boy.
Yes.
And then with the little girl as well on top of that. How did it affect your walk with the Lord and your faith?
It forced, and this is a good thing, but it actually forced me to rely much deeper on the Lord. There's an old gospel song that became very meaningful to me during that time. And it's probably not even very well known in a lot of churches today. It's kind of an old traditional gospel song. And it's called, I Can't Even Walk Without You Holding My Hand. And I remember one day I was walking with Michael, because that was one of the few things we could do together that was safe. We could just, he loved walking, but of course I had to hold his hand real tight because, as you know, still to this day, he's a runner. So I remember holding his hand, and he would try to squirm away from me, and And I would say, Michael, we cannot walk together unless you hold my hand.
Mm-hmm.
I have to hold your hand the whole time. And I did not hear an audible voice of God, but I heard the voice of God so deeply in my spirit at that moment. It said, Mark, it's no different with you.
Yeah.
You cannot walk through this. You cannot walk through this day without me holding your hand.
Right.
And so that song, I Can't Even Walk Without You Holding My Hand, became very meaningful to me. And there was a period of time there where God was still giving me, messages. I never had to, reheat an old message. I never had to go online to try to find something to preach. God always gave me a fresh word every week.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing I could pray, really, during that time, I would just pray basically the word help. So I would pray. Every time I would pray, every time I would stop to pray, I would just say, help me.
Yep.
Help us, Lord. Just
Yep.
Please help me through this. And thankfully, that is the only prayer you have to offer at some dark moments of your life. You don't have to say anything fancy. You don't have to try to impress God. You can just literally look up to heaven, just like a kid would do if they were in danger with their parents, and just say, help me. Help. I need help. And so that's what got me through, was just learning to lean upon the Lord, learning to rely more heavily, and to just admit that I was not the big man that I thought I was, that I had to humble myself and realize that I couldn't go through this without the Lord holding my hand.
Yeah.
So, and it's kept me going since. So it's not a crutch. It is the very core of who I am, and it's the very core of my existence.
When people ask me often, like, how do you stay happily married? Okay, it's not like we have a perfect marriage, and we
don't.
Oh,
I know we did.
Shh. So, how do we, as a couple, nourish our relationship and our love?
Sure.
And because so many couples sadly divorce, especially when autism strikes your house, your life.
Yeah,
couples
it's a big
just
issue.
Split up.
It's a big issue with any kind of special needs families. It just creates a lot of pressure in the home.
Yeah.
I would say probably ultimately it's our faith that keeps us centered, for sure. But it's about making time.
Centered, not sinner.
Yeah. It's making time for one another, and it's also not letting each other have a margin of error.
Yeah.
Like, I don't expect Ula to just be, fresh face and excited and with a hot meal on the table when I get home from work. Because I know that especially during the summer holidays, that she is literally just with the kids all day. And so we share those responsibilities. And again, there's nothing wrong with one breadwinner or two breadwinners. In our circumstances, Ula's not able to work at public job, but she does so much work. She pulls so much weight. She keeps us together at home, and she's a wonderful homemaker, a wonderful autism mother. But I think it's not putting so much pressure on one another. If we're in a bad mood, we kind of forgive each other and just accept that, it's okay to be in a bad mood. It's okay to be snappy. We're going to get over it. We're going to get over it. We're going to give each other a margin of error. We're not going to put so much pressure on one another because we already have so much pressure as it is. We're just going to learn to give each other room to have bad days. And every couple should do that.
Absolutely.
Ula doesn't expect me to show up every day with roses in my hand. And
I do.
Well, it's only 5 days a week. She wants it 7 now. No, it isn't. But probably should. Yeah, I should probably get you more flowers.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think about it.
I want flowers in the garden.
I am so sad to see that note, Kim. That gives me mixed emotions, because I immediately, as a dad, as a husband, I feel kind of some indignation when I see something like that. But I also don't know the circumstances. But that's just such a hard thing to have to see. I can't imagine. Here's my thing. As difficult as things can be sometimes with Michael and with raising any child, I couldn't imagine my life without him.
Oh, yes.
I couldn't imagine my life without this beautiful lady next to me. So, the simple fact is, we're just in love. ultimately, right? I mean, we're just completely head over heels. I mean, we've been married how many years now? Going on 13
Yes.
in December. Whew, that was risky, wasn't it? I like
No,
dove
wait.
into. Yeah, we're going on. So who's in trouble?
Wait,
Am I in trouble?
I
Or
have
you're
a
in trouble?
reminder
We're
here.
both in trouble.
2005. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, 13.
But going on 13, and I am more in love with her than I ever have been. And that's not because I'm perfect or she's perfect, but we're just in love, and we take time for dates.
That's it. Now we're
thing.
coming to the essence.
Mm-hmm.
How do we keep going? I mean, yes, love is very important, but
Faith.
you can love someone, but the stress
Yeah.
and the lack of hope,
Mm-hmm.
and when you don't see the light coming,
Yeah.
you don't see any hope, you don't see any help, you feel overwhelmed, and then even the strongest love can be crumbled.
So faith is the ultimate, the most important thing. Our common faith in the Lord Jesus. That's the foundation.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, like I said, it's giving each other room to just not be at our best and accept the fact that we have an additional stress in our life, and so we just learn to let go of some things.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that I'm right when she forgives me, or that or she's right when I forgive her. But having that margin of error, this is very important in any home. But that's helped us a lot.
Yeah.
And the fact that our dates.
Having someone to actually take the kids for a couple hours,
mm-hmm.
like our mom and dad
are doing right now.
Yeah, yep. Actually, our kids are with grandparents now, mm-hmm. so we can have this conversation.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very important to have this support group, those closest community, because it does take a village to raise a child, especially a special needs child. Yes. Or a child on the spectrum.
So our family, I have to say that my parents here in the U.S. have been a huge help to us. I mean, so have our parents in Poland. I mean, they have done so much for us. Mm-hmm. But the fact that my mom and dad are nearby, they can do more practical, just, because mm-hmm. they're here in the same city, or the same county, rather. So they have been a huge help to us through the years. We've always kind of lived within a close proximity of one another. And I don't know what we do without them. I mean, they're tremendous people. They're my heroes in many ways. Yeah. But they have been right there with us side by side in raising Michael.
Andrea has a question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you read it out loud, please?
How did you manage to raise both kids with a daughter without autism and your son with it? Did they get along? I mean, she was able to understand what the big brother was doing was not normal, or was she imitating him? Sorry if the question sounds mean. Does not sound mean at all.
Not at all.
I can tell you that Vivian has the natural jealousy with Michael.
Like any brother or sister.
She has not always seen Michael as different. She notices now she's older that he's different. But she just has the normal sibling rivalry. And yes, there have been times where we have had to change plans because of a meltdown, or change something that she enjoyed eating because we found out that Michael had an allergy and aversion to it. So
we just avoid altogether.
We just avoid it. And that doesn't mean that we can't have it for her outside of the house, but we can't bring certain things into the house. And so sometimes that's unfair. And why does Michael get to do this, or why can't we do this? So there's a sibling rivalry. She has, like every young sibling, has been jealous. And she has a right to feel that way sometimes, because we've not always been perfect. The situation, you just kind of learn on the fly. So we try to give her a margin of error too, without letting her just, be raised a heathen. We have to.
And we had to prepare her as well. We had to explain. Once she got to a certain age, when we saw that she understands, that she sees the difference, and like, why my brother is different than all the other kids. And especially when they were going to the same school for a while, we just had to prepare her, because we knew that other kids, classmates, will ask questions. So we were educating her through examples and just basically explaining what autism really is and why Michael behaves certain ways.
Yes.
And I think it's the best way always to tell the child as well, because Michael realizes that he's different.
Yes, he does.
He knows that he's got autism, not necessarily the word autism, but he understands that.
I also think that we have to let her vent sometimes. So that's something I've worked on, is to say, well, if mom and daddy have the right to vent sometimes, then if Vivian gets disappointed, with certain things, or she can't, or plans change because of her brother's circumstances. You know, she's only 8. She has a right to vent too. So I think that's what we're trying to do, is just to be respectful of the fact that it's not something that just we have to live with. She has to live with it too.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you, Shelley. You are such a blessing to us. Hey, Whitney.
Hi, Whitney.
Thank you for stopping by as well. So I would say that we have a lot of stories to tell. We have a lot of things that we could talk about on our journey with autism, but ultimately we do not have a sad story to tell.
Yeah.
God has been very good to us.
Amen. But let's go back, because many people are asking me, okay, so when your son has a meltdown, or when he's got, tantrums and so on, you want to go to family meeting, get together, like we are going now this Saturday. We're going to family meeting to another state. And when your son has this meltdown, when you have to leave the restaurant or something, how does it feel? What do we do? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, what I do sometimes, unfortunately, is I get very frustrated, but I just try to minimize embarrassment for him.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times, I'll try to kind of block a view. I'm a big guy, so I try to position myself where people, other parishioners in the church, or maybe other kids that are ogling or something. I try to kind of shield him a little bit. So it's really all about shielding Michael.
So if you're a kid in our church, please forgive my husband when he gives you this look.
Hey, our church is phenomenal. Our church is phenomenal, and I try to avoid doing that, but it's just, my instincts to protect Michael from embarrassment or too much scrutiny. Well, we travel around a lot of churches and things. I sometimes speak at different churches, and I always try to have a good attitude, but I see if someone ogling, an adult or a child, I kind of try to let them know, hey, take a picture. Take a picture.
Yep.
No, I'm just kidding. I try to have a good spirit about it, but I don't always. So that's something I got to work on.
Yeah.
Continue.
And I was a lot worse in the past, right? I was ready to actually physically just, you got a problem? You got a problem? Huh?
Yeah. Well, we're just human. I mean, everybody has.
And people say I'm scary.
You can be. We all can be. But no, we're not. We're not. I mean, God is a very merciful God, and also I think that our friends, our family, we all have. It's a give and take thing. You have good days and you have bad days. There's times where you go to a restaurant and it's just wonderful.
Yep.
And he sits there and there's no meltdown. But obviously, if he starts getting upset and people start looking, then it becomes very hard. He notices it, and then I'm trying to protect him, and it just flips my mood pretty quick. To kind of protect him, to be almost like Secret Service, getting him out of there, without causing him any unnecessary scrutiny.
Yeah. So now we're talking about the future, because we are discussing the future. We are concerned that we'll have to be with Michael for the rest of our lives. Like other parents are preparing to be empty nesters and be grandparents and so on, which I think we will feel because of Vivian as well. But I still have the hope that Michael will one day recover enough to have his own life. And I know that he's looking at the girls and he wants to impress them with a stylish hairstyle.
And he's a good looking kid, so he does get attention.
He looks like this guy.
You don't.
He does. He does.
Just
anyway, talk about shy. Yes, but
hey Denise.
And we have to readjust our future plans as well.
Yes.
And
it's kind of an on-the-fly adjustment because we don't know what the future holds.
And we have the faith that God can.
Absolutely.
We don't know what His will for Michael's life is. And I was talking to Whitney yesterday that, God uses even the bad things. And God didn't create autism, but God uses autism so that we can give this hope and the light to other parents who don't have that, and show that there is a way. And I believe that Michael is improving now.
I do too.
So I want to go back to the therapies and treatments that you found the most effective, because we went to New Mexico to see Dr. Jason Howe, Linda Howe, and Dr. Sunil Pai and Maureen Sutton.
Yep, great people.
amazing
made a
doctors.
big impact on our lives and Michael's lives.
We had the treatment, neuroacupuncture. I want your insight because I was talking a lot. And
well, I mean, I would imagine every parent sees a difference in their children's behavior when they have less sugar.
Oh,
so yes. I think with Michael, I think when we see him having less sugar, whether it's natural, what we call healthy sugar, like from fruit, or the bad stuff that you buy in the store, I think I have seen huge improvement in him when he's not getting very much of that, or any at all.
Yeah.
And also when we're engaging. I mean, you know, like every couple, we're tired, we want to go to bed, and the kids don't always want to go to bed when we want them to go to bed.
Especially in the summer break.
And so, you know, there's boredom kicks in, and so if we work on keeping engaged with him and trying to keep him, you know, he loves getting tickled and brought to the swimming pool. He loves the swimming pool. So I try to do that a couple times a week with him. I think engaging him, showing him love is probably the biggest difference maker ultimately. Just loving him, which is an easy thing to do because he's a very lovable kid. But it's also trying to minimize sugar. That's for me, I've seen the most improvement when he has kind of avoided that sugar. And the supplements, the different supplements that we've tried. We
have the policy, no preservatives, no artificial ingredients, flavorings, and all that stuff. Everything is banned. So in our house, whatever we have is as much organic as possible, non-GMO, and we try to steer that way to help him through the diet and supplements. So have you noticed any difference with the supplements?
I can't pronounce some of the supplements, but certainly there's a couple, and I'm just showing my ignorance here, I guess. But I can't pronounce them. I cannot pronounce the name. You can pronounce them, but you know.
Which one? The Bodger stuff.
I'm not even going to try and attempt it.
Yeah, this Daddy Bear is always putting some crazy wording in my mouth. Like, you will give him some green juice with a butter stove and
whatever
branches.
Yeah, something. Kale leaves or something. I don't know. But I just know there's things that work.
Yeah.
And if we're faithful in administering those, we definitely see a difference.
Yeah.
So
what about like occupational therapy, speech and language, ABA therapy?
I believe all of that's important. I believe it's all made an impact. I just wish he could have more.
Yeah.
And it's just about resources.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for a new career that I've started here, and some things are starting to really fall into place. But I don't know if it was ever shared this part of the story, but we have literally started from scratch. I mean, we moved back to the U.S. a year and a half ago. We left the home that we own in Cyprus. If you want to buy a home in Cyprus, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
It's rented right now. So, no, but we wanted to sell our house before we moved. That didn't happen yet. So financially, we made it. We went through a lot of changes, and so we have just started over. So imagine, I'll be 141 next month. And so starting with a brand new career when I was already established at another company and just kind of left everything we knew. But I mean, God's faithful. We haven't done without, but we have almost felt like teenagers starting off, in the U.S., but not teenagers.
And with two kids.
And with
special needs.
So, just the resources, the financial resources to do all the things, not able to do all those yet, but there's a lot of things that we are able to do. And I'm thankful for that. But I think we want to build on that.
And what about the disappointments that come with autism and financial cost of autism or shattered dreams? Go ahead.
Well, I think when you become a parent, when you become a dad, especially if, I'm just talking to the culture that I was born in. I was born and raised in the deep South, South Carolina. My whole family were all big Clemson Tiger fans. And so I think when you're growing up and you think, well, when I have a son, we're going to go to ball games together. We're going to cheer our team together. We're going to sit down and have discussions about life. one of the greatest things that ever happened in my life was the day that Michael Joseph Tinsley was born, February the 6th, 2007. So immediately, even before he was born, I was already standing in the Memorial Stadium in Clemson with him. I was already there with him. We were already having conversations. We were already joking around with one another, talking about things. And he's going to point out a girl that he thinks is cute, and I'm going to say, "All right, man, go for it." I had all those expectations, and I think just the companionship of a son, it's something. Kim's in Columbia, so I'm in trouble now. All right, so yes, there is a little bit of rivalry. I don't know, there's some kind of rivalry down there with Clemson. No, it's good to see you, Kim. So actually, not all of our family are Clemson Tigers. There are a few Gamecock fans too, so we're praying for them though. Okay, I'm just kidding. So get back to this. So I think having all those expectations, and also seeing my two brothers, the relationship they have with their sons, and I just naturally assumed that well, great, I can't wait for this. I'm going to have the same thing. So it was, as he's gotten older, it's been it was hard letting go of all that, for sure. And there were days where you feel sorry for yourself a little bit, but most of my sorrow was for him. I mean, I'm not trying to be a saint here and say that I didn't have days where I felt sorry for myself, and still have them sometimes. But most of it was for him. The pain was for him. But it still hurts. Some days I see my brothers with their sons, and I'm not resentful. I'm very happy. I think they're amazing people. But I just said I wanted that too. And a couple of my nephews have gone on to become preachers. I had that same dream for Michael. So it was extremely hard. And it has been extremely hard because you don't really know what you're in for, what you're losing when you get the diagnosis at first, because he's just a little kid. But it's the loss. You kind of, it comes in waves as he gets older. You realize there's just certain, time has passed. Hey, greetings from Cyprus.
Valentini, thank you.
Good to see you, Valentini. So as he gets older, you see, well, he's 11 already, and we could have been doing this, we could have been doing that. Yeah. Try not to focus on that, but like I said, we're just human. So I think it's as he's getting older and things maybe haven't improved to the point yet that I hoped and prayed they would. It's an ongoing thing, letting go.
Let's talk about the Mario Bros, the Nintendo.
Yeah, that was a cool thing.
That was your dream as well.
I am, yeah. And some of the dreams I have companionship with my son. There are things that we do together that are wonderful. Like we go swimming together, and it's cool.
Hiking. We
go hiking together. I tickle him and we wrestle, which is awesome. I always wanted to do that with my son, and I do have those things. Yeah. So I'm thankful for that. Something else that's recent. I'm a bit of a gamer. I'm not a serious gamer, but I like to play mainly sports games. I don't get much time to play them, but I have FIFA and NFL and NCAA football, all the things on the PlayStation. But I always love the old video games. The old Nintendo Super Mario Brothers.
Yes.
So this is not an advert, but they came out with the retro Nintendo Classic Mini with all those built-in games. Hey there, John, how you doing, man? So the Super Nintendo, they came out with a little Nintendo Classic with all those built-in games, the old school games. Yeah. So my favorite game of all time is Super Mario Brothers. And I always wanted to play video games with Michael, but the only games he plays is on his tablet.
Yes. But
we bought this maybe last week. It arrived, the Nintendo Classic, and he watched me play Super Mario Brothers, and he was just watching intently. And so I said, I should give him a chance. And so now he, for the first time, is playing video games and loving it.
Yes, with actual joystick.
With the joystick, the old school Nintendo Classic, and playing Super Mario Brothers. Even made it to World 1-3. If you're not a Super Mario guy, you don't really know what that means, but he's doing good. And so that's fun to see him do something that I didn't maybe think he would get much have much interest in doing.
Or even learn how to
do it. And he's sitting there, pressing all the right buttons.
We were not really
awesome
underestimating him.
Yeah, and not intentionally. We just think, well, he prefers his tablet. He likes the touch screen, so maybe he probably won't even.
And because he likes.
But there he is, sitting there like me, and getting stressed, and getting upset when he dies, and looking at the controller just like I would. What are you doing, controller? Blaming the controller. And it's just sweet to see him have that kind of passion, and like I said, I don't even get a chance to play very much, but when I do, it's fun, and it's great to see Michael getting in there with me.
Oh, yes.
You're so sweet, Valentina. Such a sweet thing to say.
Yeah. So, yes, some dreams slowly come true. And I believe as we progress with different treatments, which we will never give up.
Yeah.
And now we're on I believe, on the good path.
He's becoming a very good swimmer.
He's excellent.
I mean, he's
much better swimmer
I have
than
a hard
me.
time keeping up with him in the pool. I mean,
and he's a great runner. He's super fast runner.
It's a shame we don't have like an inside track that he can just be, because if we don't, I mean, not so much you, but if I don't make sure that I stay in shape as he gets older, as far as just fitness, there's going to come a day if he keeps running that I'm not going to be able to catch him. So that's important. Yeah.
Well, the
Thank you, John.
final.
Man, that's awesome. You're an inspiration, brother. I promise you that.
Yes.
Big time.
And John is trauma translator. He's an amputee, and he's a phenomenal mentor and inspiration. So
no quit in him. That's what's awesome. Quitting. I love to meet people that have no quit in them because it inspires me.
So, and awesome. What about the final word to the audience, like for other autism daddies, because autism daddies seem to be more, very
maybe forgotten a little bit or whatever.
Forgotten. Also, I knew what I wanted to ask you about having buddies to hang out with. Right. The regular things that other daddies do and take for granted.
Well, I think it's hard to make time for yourself.
Yeah.
When you know that your family is needing you a lot, and also when you know that your son's best friend is you. Mm-hmm. You adjust. I can honestly say that I've gotten used to it now, just not going out, hanging out with buddies, going on fishing trips, or going to wherever, having a meal together. I'm not saying I won't ever do those things, but I know that for every bit of free time I have outside of work, which isn't very much, that small amount of free time, if I'm spending it elsewhere, it's opportunity that I'm losing with Michael. It's a little bit of taste of freedom that Michael's losing. Like on my day off today, I'm going to have to take him swimming because it's the best day to do that, because I can just focus, take him there for an hour and just let him swim. And sure, I could think of a million things to do that I'd like to do on my day off, but I have to prioritize him. I have to find some time for this beautiful lady next to me. I have to find some time for my daughter. I don't want to leave her, abandoned in this process. So it's just, you have to, the word balance is so important in everybody's life. But I think if you are a parent of a special needs child and you have another child or more, you have to have balance. You cannot, don't live plagued with guilt. It's something that is easy to say, but it's something that rears its ugly head every day in my life. And you just have to let go of the guilt and just do the best you can. That's all that God expects of us, is to do what we can. And and what we cannot do, we put in His hands. You put in His hands the things you cannot do.
Foiza,
you're so sweet, Foiza. Thank you. So I think dads, if I had a message for autism dads and a message for me, is don't make your life even harder by being guilty all the time and living in guilt. Because if you could fix your kid, you would. But you can't. You can just do the best you can. You cannot be the perfect husband. You cannot be the perfect dad. You cannot be the perfect employee. You do the very best you can. And that's all that God expects of us. And I think if humans had that same kind of mutual respect, not expecting perfection.
And it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to have a bad day and just say, don't forget about it.
Don't add even more misery. Don't add more misery by guilt. Just let go of the guilt and just know that I might not be able to take my son every day to swim, And there's times I do have to say no. There's times where my daughter says, "Read me a story," and
Mm-hmm.
I feel guilty. Oh, I should have read the story, but I'm just exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
If you're exhausted, you're exhausted.
Yes.
If you're going to pass out, just pass out
Mm-hmm.
and try to do better the next day, and maybe God will give you a little more strength the next day. Do what you can, and don't be afraid, and don't live in misery and guilt that I'm not
Mm-hmm.
doing enough, I'm not good enough. It doesn't serve any purpose. What it's going to do is bring you down. And dads, if there's any other autism dad listening,
Don't quit.
Don't quit. If there's any other special need dad listening, don't quit. Yes, your kid needs you, your family needs you, but ultimately, you have a purpose. But don't burn yourself out. Just do what you can and accept the things you cannot do and accept the things you can do,
Mm-hmm.
and just live each day to the fullest. And if you miss a few things today, then catch up tomorrow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm so glad, John.
John is amazing.
He is amazing. That puts goosebumps on me reading for sure. Yeah. Just do what you can. And that's my message. And I would also say to everybody, I don't know what your mountain or your daily struggle or your thing
Mm-hmm.
that you have to deal with. And for some people, they've had to battle cancer. They've had to battle losing someone.
Yeah.
I know people that I love dearly that battle, drug addiction, and just there's a lot of sorrow in the world.
And heartache.
There's a lot of heartache, but I believe there's more love and there's more hope than there is sorrow. And I know that if we look up,
Mm-hmm.
I know that our Redeemer lives.
Yeah.
I know my Redeemer lives. And, this mountain that we have to climb and the mountain that Michael has to climb, it's achievable. The mountain that John has to climb, the mountains that you have to climb in your life. I don't know what you're facing. I don't know what you're dealing with. But I assure you of this. There's a God who cares, who understands, who loves. And if you look to him as ultimately as the source of everything, if you turn and put your trust in him, then he will direct your paths, and he will bring clarity, and he'll bring peace. It won't always be perfect. It won't always be rosy, but you'll make it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's better days coming.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah. That's the only message I can really give. I think the only one that matters.
I think you exhausted the whole thing. It's so true. Being an autism parent is already a burden,
Mm-hmm.
a very heavy load.
Sure.
And we understand. That's why I am not the only autism mom out there, but I have a great co-laborer in this autism advocacy. This warrior is also here, maybe behind the scenes. But if you have any questions, if your husband, I'm talking to other mommies, if your husband is struggling,
Mm-hmm.
or if your marriage is on the rocks, just please give us a call. Send me a message. Send my husband a message.
Listen.
We'll listen.
Won't judge,
we'll try to
won't
help
be-
you. This is our ministry right
Won't
now.
be looking down and pointing fingers, because we struggle too.
Or simply, if you're looking to talk to someone who can relate, who can really understand,
Yep.
because it's so difficult to find friends who
Mhm.
can relate what you're going through,
Yes.
unless they have a special need child as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
So
But whatever, even if you don't have, if you just want to talk, just have someone that would listen and not be judgmental and hateful.
Yes.
We're both here.
I mean, we're talking
easy
to
find.
a preacher and a
J. Mark
spiritual
Tinsley
counselor.
Ministries. J. Mark Tinsley Ministries. You can there's a page there that you
I'll
can like.
post it in the comments as well. J. Mark Tinsley Ministries, that's my husband's ministry, trying to uplift people who are struggling with different things, or who simply want to get closer with God and get a better walk with the Lord. And yeah, so thank you for doing what you're doing.
Well, I mean, it's not me, but we can all make it though.
We
There's
can
hope
make
for us all, for sure.
All right. Thank you so much
It was an
for
honor.
coming. It's so awkward. I was more stressed today than with any other interview. I mean, you can tell my palms talk about anxiety.
Well, I was a little more nervous than I expected to, but I'm really glad that we got an opportunity to.
Yes,
to
we
do
just
this together.
wanted to bring the father's perspective on autism and how it feels to have a son with autism, and give you hope.
Amen.
So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for all your comments. And if you have any questions, either to me or to Mark, please write them down, and we will get back to you shortly.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, guys. God
Love
bless.
you. God bless.